Hey there, welcome to Spoiler Piece Theater, the podcast that doesn't give a shit about spoilers. We just want to talk about the movies. My name is Dave Riedel. My pronouns are he, him. I write and talk about movies, and I'm a member of the Boston Online Film Critics Association.
My name is Evan Crean. Pronouns are he, him. I am co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s movie guide to better living.
Yes, you are the author.
I am.
We're running as a duo tonight. Megan is on vacation, but shall be returning. And hope you're having a good time, Megan, wherever you are. I mean, I know where you are, but I'm not going to say it on the mic.
Right.
Wanted to say really quickly, this is not a political podcast, but I have COVID right now, listeners. I think I tested positive about a week ago by the time you hear this, and so I'll be doing my best to mute the mic and things like that when I have to barf up a lung, but I'm probably not going to be able to get them all. So that's one reason I'm telling you that, just in case you think I sound a little funny. The other reason is COVID's still out there. Wear your mask.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty much everybody I know except Evan has gotten COVID in the last 6 weeks. So it's real and It sucks, by the way. Just want everybody to know if you haven't had it, you don't want it. I think that's a fair assessment. So
yeah, I was saying you'd be the expert, unfortunately.
Yeah. On that less than happy note, let's talk about the movies this week. We got 2 movies. We got the documentary, The Automat, which was my choice.
I was interested in seeing it too, by the way. You didn't have to twist my arm on this one.
Yeah. And then the second movie, so it's a documentary about the Automat, which if you don't know what that is, you will in about 3 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And
the second movie we saw is a Norwegian horror film, The Innocents, and that's Innocent S, not like the end of The Innocents, right. Like Don Henley.
This is the end of the Innocents.
That was actually what was going to play over the closing credits. And then they were like, that's not how Innocence translates. And they're like,
no.
Oh, okay. So anyway, The Automat. The Automat's a documentary. But before we do that, I forgot. We have, of course, as ever, a Patreon episode. And over on the Patreon, we talk about the 1976 Elaine May film Mikey and Nicky, starring Peter Falk and John Cassavetes. And it is a lively discussion about a very lively movie in its own weird way.
Yeah.
And Evan and I had a good time talking about it. So if you're a patron, please go over and listen. And if you're not a patron, please consider becoming one, and then you can go and listen. So There you go. So anyway, the first movie we're going to talk about is The Automat. It's a documentary that Irish setters on the vending machine popularized in the 20th century that offered fresh cooked meals in a commissary-style eatery. That is true. Also, I take issue with the way this is written. Fresh cooked should be hyphenated. They got commissary-style hyphenated, but they don't have fresh cooked hyphenated. What's wrong with you people?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
People tend to under-hyphenate, and it drives me crazy.
They really do. It's like if you've taken 2 or more words and you've turned it into an adjective, you hyphenate. It's very simple.
Right.
So, it's like the difference between affect and effect. If it's a verb, it's an A. If it's not, it's an E. Anyway, moving on. So, this documentary, it's kind of nice to see some really, really famous people in this, like Mel Brooks and RBG, and there's some other famous people that I'm forgetting. Carl Reiner. But anyway, if you don't know, Evan, I wanted to watch this because I vaguely remember they couldn't have been automats because I'm from Indiana, and as we learn in the movie, the Automat only existed in New York City, in Manhattan, and in Philadelphia. But they had something similar that was probably ripped off where I grew up in Indiana at various places, whereas you stick in some change. In this case, they say in the Automat, almost everything was a nickel. Especially the coffee, which everybody claims is great. I wonder if it's as good as they, if they're remembering things correctly. But
could be.
Yeah.
I mean, people really like French press coffee, and they said that was the style that it was done in, but it was, a giant machine version of French press coffee.
I like French press coffee, so that's, could be. Yes, and it came out of like a dolphin.
Yes, a fountainhead style dolphin.
Fountainhead style dolphin. The work put into these machines was fascinating. But anyway, as I was saying about places that I went in Indiana that I thought we had automats, but it turns out Automat was what this company, Horn and Hardart, called these restaurants, where you stick in your nickel and you get your coffee or your cherry pie or your meatloaf or whatever. Seems like they had just about everything under the sun. Every sort of like American dish under the sun.
Yeah, people like the cream spinach a lot. That came up a few times when they were interviewing these famous people about their favorite dishes at the Automat.
RBG and the former mayor of Philadelphia both make special mention of the cream spinach.
Yeah.
The
Colin
former
Powell
mayor.
too, I think.
Oh yeah, probably. What I think is so fascinating about this is that the Automat was designed to give you good food and to also be inexpensive. And it seems like it actually did that. And the only thing that killed it over the years was basically the changing of the times. When white people started leaving New York and Philadelphia for the burbs. That seems like when everything, kind of went badly. More women staying home and raising families, so not in the workforce and having lunch and things like that at the Automat. And then a lot of people leaving cities, so there was no dinner crowd. I mean, there are other things to it than that, but basically what I'm saying is it's all white people's fault.
Yeah. It definitely seemed like the migration to the suburbs was a big issue. I think trying to keep pace with offering such an affordable product, I think also hurt them. Like, I think at a certain point they had to, increase the price from 5 cents to 10 cents. And that was difficult because people were so used to spending a nickel on these things. I'm trying to think what else they were talking about. I mean, the real estate became very valuable for them. Yeah. They had like a bajillion locations that they're able to sell out to franchises like Burger King or whatever, or use the location, the real estate to franchise.
Right. Now, did they own those franchises or did they just lease the space? I can't remember.
It wasn't clear to me whether they owned them or leased the space.
Yeah. But when I first moved to New York in the 90s, I probably was in a former Automat that had become a Burger King or something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I liked hearing the origin story of, them trying to create this affordable, high quality product that served people regardless of class. It was like, you have a nickel, you can get the food. It doesn't matter. And they were talking about how you could go in there. Anybody could go in there.
Yeah.
And I liked that idea. And this, they created these massive kitchens to cook all of this food fresh, and seeing the behind the scenes footage of that was absolutely fascinating to me.
Yeah, I agree. And the whole idea that you would have not fast food, but good food prepared quickly. I don't know. For lack of a better term, homemade or fresh cooked, as it said in the IMDb summary. Like food made all day, every day, shuttled to these restaurants in their fleet of trucks that they owned, all made, I think in New York anyway, it was, I want to say like Midtown West. It was on 9th Avenue in the upper 40s or something. I don't remember exactly. But, I mean, how cool is that to got this, think about, like, you could go into a nice restaurant and stick a nickel or two in the slot and have meatloaf. That would be fucking amazing. In case you can't tell, I like meatloaf. And
yeah, me too.
Yeah. And they always have cherry pie. So fucking rock and roll. And French press coffee. I'm in. I mean, you have all of the things I want under one roof. And to your point, Evan, about how it was sort of a place where anybody could come regardless of their economic status or their race for that matter. Several people in the documentary make the point that even though this is the North, New York and Philadelphia, still segregation, except at the Automat. Anybody could go to the Automat and it was totally cool Now, I'm sure you had your occasional outlier, but everybody did seem to agree that the Automat was like a nice, safe, wholesome, clean place you could go and eat good food inexpensively.
Yeah. They really welcomed anybody there, and I think that was part of their downfall, which was really sad to hear, that they, would let people who were homeless stay there and like keep warm, and they didn't kick people out. And so then they got this perception that they were like dirty and gross, and like, there were people who recounted stories about, somebody, exposed themselves to me in this situation. And so people stopped wanting to go there because they felt like it had this kind of like dirty, gross, untouchable image. And that made me really sad, because it's like ultimately they were trying to do a good thing.
Yeah.
And help people keep warm and feed them inexpensively. And then other people turned up their nose at that and said, oh, well, that's gross. Like, I don't want to go there anymore.
Yeah. Well, one of the points that they make, aside from, people moving to the suburbs, is that I think that they actually didn't really talk about this, but it would have been interesting. A lot of the people who were Automat patrons were either children of immigrants, or they'd come up through the Depression. So to walk into a place and be able to get, a cup of coffee, a piece of pie, and let's just go with meatloaf for 15 or 20 cents, that's fucking amazing, But then as you have the first wave of teenagers, the baby boomers who have disposable income, of course they didn't want to go to the Automat the same way their parents did. Boomers ruin everything is what I'm trying to say. But I mean, that also coincided with people moving to the suburbs and younger people wanting to have service as opposed to self-service. I like a good cafeteria, by the way. I don't give a shit. So,
yeah, I wouldn't be upset about going somewhere where I put a nickel in a machine and get the food and can just sit there and enjoy the food.
I know. And if you've got like two friends who are like, no, this place is great, then of course you trust them because it's, second source. So, where I was growing up in Fort Wayne, Indiana, there was the MCL cafeteria. There you go. Great fried chicken. So amazing. Just thought I'd mention
I'm
that.
getting hungry.
Yeah,
I would be getting hungry. I had a nice big burger for dinner, and now I feel like you mentioned fried chicken and meatloaf.
Yeah. I'm actually kind of surprised that this is circling back around to the COVID, everybody. I haven't really wanted to eat for the past week, which is just imagine the worst cold or flu you ever had that never goes away. That's what it's been like so far. Yeah. Because, you have a sore throat for a couple, 3 days when you have a cold or the flu, right? Not this illness. Perpetual. So anyway, we're talking about the Automat. We're not talking about COVID Peace Theater. So
no, but it is relevant.
It is relevant. Yeah. I don't want to bring everybody down though. Especially if you're already suffering from COVID yourselves. Anyway, so this is, it's kind of a slight documentary in a way, because it's not the deepest. It's more of a reminiscence kind of thing with the history woven in. And also it's short. It's 78 minutes long, which is part of the reason I wanted to watch it, by the way.
He loves long movies where nothing happens, but he also likes a good short movie.
I do indeed. So anyway, that was the Automat. And I would say, I would recommend the Automat. If you've got an hour and 18 minutes to spend on, and you will learn about something that is a wholly American institute. Well, it's actually not wholly American because they got the idea from
Europe.
From Europe, yeah. But in American,
they kind of made it their own.
Yeah, that's true. But from an American institution that's dead. So.
Yeah, and they said it was probably one of the, if not the biggest restaurant chain, because of they just had them everywhere in New York and Philadelphia, which are large cities. So
yeah, I mean, I think that they said that the trucks, was it 20,000 miles a week that they put on? In the trucks did 20,000 miles of driving a week between the entire fleet, going from like the warehouse or whatever you call the commissary to the different restaurants.
Yeah, they had some really cool stats. I mean, there was a part where they were rattling off, how many millions of burgers and things like that they sold in a given time span. And it was just staggering that anyone had that kind of size of operation, including they were saying later, at one point during World War II, they were feeding the troops from Automat food, Horn and Harder, as they were called, and more so in Philadelphia than in New York. They were like the Automat in New York and Horn and Hardart in Philadelphia.
Yeah, but just colloquially. That's what the people called them, which I think is interesting. You know, the Philadelphians called them Horn and Hardart, even though it said Automat on the door.
Mm-hmm.
And Horn and it said both. It said Automat and Horn and Hardart on all the doors. And so New Yorkers called it the Automat. Philadelphians called it Horn and Hardart, which I don't know why I'm expanding on that. It's just, I guess it's interesting to me, the difference between two large metropolitan areas and what people take away from the places they go.
Yeah. I liked seeing all these interviews especially with people that we've lost, like RBG and Carl Reiner. I'm glad I got to see these interviews, and I think it's kind of funny that the documentary opens and closes with Mel Brooks and this kind of meta concept where he's like, "Wait a minute, you're making this documentary? Okay, you're gonna have to make this like over 60 minutes." If it's gonna play at some film, he's like basically like setting up like
it's
how
being
this
their
movie
producer
should be made.
Without being a producer.
Yeah.
Which he did for not hundreds. He was a big producer. I'm sure that our listeners know this, but like he produced David Lynch's The Elephant Man, so he produced a lot of movies that didn't have dick and fart jokes in them, I guess is the short version. So what a strange thing to say.
Yeah. One thing I did find a little bit strange was it felt like you said, it's kind of a slight documentary. It's light, it's fun. You kind of get in and out pretty quickly. I was kind of, I found it to be a little bit pro-business and pro-capitalism in a way that was a little bit uncomfortable, mainly in the scenes where they're interviewing Howard Schultz about Starbucks and how the Automat influenced Starbucks. Mostly just because right now I feel like he's not a very well-liked character broadly, and Starbucks especially trying to block people from unionizing and how they've treated their employees as of late.
Right. Did the Automat employees have a union? I don't think they did, right?
No. They said that they tried to form a union, but then they didn't.
Yeah, and then the workers decided not to form a union. That's right. You're right. Yeah, even though, very pro-business to your point, even though they make a whole point of talking about how shitty it was for the new executives to come in who had no connection to this family business, who just started making business decisions as opposed to decisions that also were with the tone of a family-run business.
Right.
And one guy even says, he's like, that's progress. That's how it goes. I don't apologize for that. It's like, well, I mean, I see where you're coming from.
Doesn't have to be,
but you're still kind of a dick. So
right. Yeah. It makes me think of a lot of people are talking lately about the Arizona iced tea and how it still costs 99 cents. And it's like the guy who owns it's a billionaire. So what the fuck does he care? He's not going to raise the prices. Like he can do whatever he wants with it. And people are like, hell yeah, Arizona iced tea.
Arizona iced tea only costs 99 cents still?
Yep.
Had
99 cents.
I don't think I've had an Arizona iced tea since 1999. So still occasionally we'll get a raspberry Snapple, but it's not 99 cents. So
no.
That is, if you're in the Boston area, that's playing at the Coolidge Corner Theater starting today. If you're not in the Boston area, check your local listings.
Yes, because we're not sure how widely it's going to be released.
Yeah, true. I'm sure it's probably going to be one of those documentaries that'll play in some large places, and then you'll see it on, Hulu or wherever. Anyway, second and final film of the night, The Innocents, Innocents. I know that the way I speak makes it sounds like it might be The Innocents, NCE, but it's not. And this is a Norwegian film. Here's your 2-sentence IMDb summary. During the bright Nordic summer, a group of children reveal their dark and mysterious powers when the adults aren't looking. In this original and gripping supernatural thriller, original in the sense that, Stephen King didn't write it in the mid-'80s, I guess. Playtime takes a dangerous turn. That is all true.
Yep.
This is written and directed by, would you say Eskil Vogt? Is that how this is pronounced?
I think that's how you pronounce his name.
I mean, it seems pretty straightforward to look at it, but I don't know. I don't speak Norwegian. Yeah. And Eskil Vogt also wrote or co-wrote, I don't remember, The Worst Person in the World, which is one of my favorite movies from last year.
Yeah.
What's the little girl's name? Ida?
Yeah.
Yeah, Ida and her older sister Anna, who I guess they say specifically that she's on the autism spectrum. And pretty, a more, I don't want to use the word severe. I don't know how you describe these things, but she's nonverbal.
I think nonverbal is probably the best way to describe it.
She's nonverbal. And they meet these other kids in this apartment complex in this very European, Northern European fucking sterile apartment complex.
And it's, surrounded by woods. It feels like it's kind of its own
city in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It has its own lake or pond. I'm not really sure. And everything. I mean, you don't ever see the grocery store, but you get the feeling that there's one very close by. So, and so this is basically a Stephen King story. Am I being unfair? I don't know. And the reason I say Stephen King story is because the autistic kid has magic powers, So
all the kids do.
They do,
the story.
But I feel like the one with the most significant powers is the one that Stephen King would have written a novel about in 1986. Am I wrong? I don't know. The whole time.
I don't know. I like Stephen King, but I also have not read his work extensively. I mean, I know he likes a good story about supernatural children. So, I mean, right there, I think you're onto something.
But I think Crump wrote this somewhere. I don't remember whether he wrote this in review or on Letterboxd. But
this is Andy Crump.
It's Andy Crump, friend of the show. That it seems like Eskelvoet had this great idea for how a movie ended, and then wasn't quite sure how to have it begin. And I feel like that might be. I feel like that's a good read. It takes this movie's about 2 hours long, just shy of 2 hours. And it takes a very long time to establish what is clearly coming,
right. Evil children, basically.
Yeah.
Or it turns out one really evil kid.
One really evil child, two good children, and one who's, would we call her neutral good? I don't know.
You're talking about Ida?
I'm talking about Ida.
I guess so. I feel like she becomes neutral good because at first she's an asshole too. She's like Benjamin, the lead villain of this movie. She's really mean to her sister and does kind of fucked up mean shit until she meets Ben, and then she's like, "Well, this is just a kind of fucked up that I don't want to hang out with."
And part of the whole purpose of all this death and destruction that these kids commit, which is actually not nearly as much as I'm making it sound like, but is to
still a good amount,
is to make Ida sort of realize, oh, I don't have it so bad, because I think, Ida's 9 and a lot of her resentment comes from, one, the family has just picked up and moved to this new town where she doesn't know anybody in the summer, and moving in the summer is hard for any kid, I think, because you don't know where the other kids are. And in Europe, if you're like in Norway, if it's like all of Europe, people are gone all summer or for a good part of it. So she's resentful because of the move. She's resentful because her parents spend so much time looking after Anna, her older sister. And so she's, and that resentment feels earned, in a movie sense. I think 9-year-olds probably don't, she understands that Anna needs special care, but she doesn't like it because it takes away, so much of her interaction with her in particular, her mother. But anyway, Ida goes and she finds this kid, Benjamin, who is, he's a world-class piece of shit, but I do want...
He's a sick fuck.
Yes. They make pains, and this is also kind of weird because he's the only person of color in the movie, or he's the only... No. Oh no, I'm sorry. What's the little girl's name?
The little girl.
Aisha, right. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But Ben it's just kind of like, it seems sort of convenient that the dark-skinned kid would be the bad guy, I guess. I don't know. It seemed a little unpalatable to me, is what I'm trying to say. A little unfair, but he is neglected, basically. When you see, he kills this. Well, first of all, they drop a cat down, 8 stories to see if it'll land on its feet.
Yeah. Content warning. And if people can't deal with animal death, do not see this movie.
Oh my God. Dude. I mean, that's not even the worst of it. The cat breaks its back leg and is in a bad way. And then it gets worse. And this is the one part of the beginning of the movie where I had hope, because Ben is going to, I will use the phrase, put this cat out of its misery, but that's not why kills it. He kills it because he wants to,
Yeah.
And Ida, to her credit, is like, don't. And when he does it, she's like, fuck this. And she just goes. And then you can tell that really upsets her. And she still hangs out with Ben, though. She stays away from Ben for a couple days, but then hangs out with him because she doesn't really have anyone else to hang out with. And Anna meets Aisha. And it turns out Aisha can understand. She can read Anna's thoughts. Is that how it works? I don't know exactly.
Yeah, she seems to be psychically linked to all of them,
right?
In ways that she can hear other people's thoughts, but specifically, she can hear Anna's thoughts, and so she can not only communicate what Anna is thinking and feeling, but she can also essentially use Anna as a vessel to speak. So like Anna can start talking, and it's Aisha is the one that's basically like controlling it and able to like articulate words that she needs to say.
Yeah. But Ben has powers too. They all have powers, it seems, individually. And then when the 4 of them are together, they manifest greatly, particularly in Ben and let's say Aisha / Anna. Because I think that they need to be together to work as well as they do. It's not like Aisha's going, and having other kids talk without Anna. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But the thing about Ben that I want to mention, the movie doesn't really like hit you over the head with this, although I think it maybe should a little bit more. But Ben is clearly abused and neglected. Like he takes off his shirt early in the movie, and there's an enormous bruise, under.
He's got some scars, it looks like.
Yeah. And there's a scene when he and his mom I don't know what they're doing, but she like grabs him under the chin and like digs her nails into his face and makes him look at her. So he doesn't have an easy home life. That being said, I mean, I don't know. Would he still be evil, you think, if his mom weren't horrible to him? I'm not sure.
It struck me as he might. I mean, he said that they had to move a lot, and my impression was that they had to move because he was doing sick, twisted stuff.
Oh, that might be.
I mean, maybe, but maybe not. The movie doesn't make that clear, but one thing it does make clear is the stark contrast in lived experiences between Ben and Aisha as people of color, between Ida and Anna as white people.
Yeah.
And like their parents are there, they have a home life, they have dinner together, and Ben and Aisha have to raid their fridge or eat Cheetos for dinner because their parents are either not there physically or not there emotionally. It seems like Aisha's mom is struggling with depression and possibly other issues,
and also working 2 jobs full time, it seems. So he's not at home much.
Right. They're what we would call in the olden days like latchkey kids, essentially. Like they don't.
Yeah. And
their parents just aren't around. They have to take care of themselves.
Yeah. And we should say that Aisha's mother seems to be like she's not neglecting her kids. She's just, this is the position she's in.
Yeah. She's busy, has other stuff on her mind. And
whereas
going through a rough patch.
Yeah. Like there are a couple of moments where she's just crying by herself. And so she's got some stuff she's going through. Whereas Ben's mother, who may be going through stuff, is just, she's awful.
Yeah.
And then what does Ben do? Nice. He kills her with a frying pan.
Oh my God. Well, first of all, so the kids have a range of powers, telekinesis, telepathy. We find out that Ben has mind control, and he can just like drive people remotely, which he does to murder this kid who, it's a second murder, actually. this kid who picks on him.
Oh, right.
He remote controls some other guy and has him kill the kid. But he kills his mom by using telekinesis to hit her in the face with like a cast iron frying pan. And then while she's bleeding on the floor, he uses the hot dogs that are boiling on the stove to boil over and give her like 3rd-degree burns on her legs and just lets her sit there dying for days.
But it's weird though. It's like this movie just wants to have its cake and eat it too, because he's evil, but he also misses his mom once she's dead. And it's like, all right, does he miss his mom because he misses his mom, or because he feels regret, or like what is the whole Ben's I think Ben is the least well drawn of the characters, I guess. Ida's best drawn, followed by Aisha, followed by Anna, followed by Ben, because it's just kind of like Ben, like Ida's the only one who seems to have any sort of nuance to her character, Yeah,
I'd agree with that. He just seems straight evil. I don't think he regrets killing his mom. I did not get that impression. I think he maybe regretted killing her, and that he now does not have someone to like go to the store and like get him food and things that he needs that he can't get on his own.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that, because you notice that over the course of the movie, after he kills his mother, he gets dirtier and dirtier. Like at the end of the movie, you can see like dirt and grime on his face. But anyway, Ida sort of figures out that she doesn't want to be around evil Ben, or she doesn't want to have Ben commit acts of evil, after he gives this kid a compound fracture for no reason.
Right.
Unless it's one of the soccer kids, but it's still not a good reason,
Right. Right. And then Aisha tries to stand up to him and he almost stops her heart.
Right.
And then later, like, takes control of her mom, and her mom hallucinates and stabs her to death.
Right. Thinks she's some kind of demon looking thing. Oh yeah, by the way, if you're not fans of child murder, this movie's going to be rough for you. As a non-fan,
animal death, child murder.
As a non-fan of child murder, this movie was kind of hard for me. Although not as hard as like Alex Kittner being eaten in Jaws, because that's just some innocent kid on a raft. So that's horrible. Whereas like with Aisha, there's a whole, like you see Aisha's death coming a long way away.
Right.
Which is kind of what I mean when I think this movie overall works, but it's like greater than the sum of its parts, And the magical, I just have a real problem with the magical, the magic kid on the spectrum, because that just seems easy, or not fair to like use the autism spectrum to like be magic. I don't know. Am I wrong?
Well, I mean, it cuts both ways, I think. I think you could look at it and say it's kind of squicky to have the autistic character be like the most powerful one, because like we're kind of, especially because her character in particular has to kind of shift between like being nonverbal and being verbal, when like Aisha is essentially, using her as a parrot. But at the same time, I mean, there are some people who kind of posit that autism and like the changing of people's like their wiring in their brains and like how they work as a kind of form of human evolution. So like on the other hand, you could say, okay, well, it's kind of cool. It's kind of badass that, the autistic character is the most powerful here, because a lot of people look at autism strictly as like a disability and a problem, and fail to recognize the ways that the autistic mind can do all kinds of things that a neurotypical person cannot, even though they struggle with other, broadly struggle with things that neurotypical people can do, easily.
This reminds me of her parents, though, do that thing. So Anna does not look people in the eye, which is a movie trope among people on the spectrum. And also a movie trope is that the parents are always trying to get their kids to look in their eye. What was that movie about the invisible monster? His name was Larry. Gillian Jacobs is in it. What's that called?
Oh, yeah. Crap. I can't remember the name of it. It was like Lights Out or something.
Yeah, something like that. And the main character in that one was on the spectrum, and he was nonverbal. And the entire movie, Gillian Jacobs is like, he won't look me in the eye. It's like, well, okay. And then he finally does. And then, that's the big fucking win in that movie. And in this, the parents are like similar, they're like, oh, she looked at me. And it's like, can we stop doing this, please? You're just making me uncomfortable. I don't know if that's a commentary.
That's the name of that movie.
What's that?
Come Play.
Come Play. Right.
I think it is an autistic thing, though. I mean, not, obviously you can't apply it across the board, but I think it is an issue.
I'm not saying that the looking in the eyes is not real. What I'm saying is using it for dramatic purposes.
Yeah. Gotcha.
It just seems played out and not nice. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into this, but anyway, so as we mentioned, Ben does eventually kill Aisha via her mother through he calls it fetching. I can fetch people.
Yeah.
Ida tries to kill him by pushing him off a footbridge. And Ida's smart because she's she buys like one of those like styrofoam airplanes, and she's like, let's fly it over the highway because like it'll get good wind. And he's like, yeah. And she's standing and she scoped it out. She actually went there the day before and looked at the traffic pattern to see like where the good place would be to push him off. And I was like, man, they're taking a lot of care with this. Obviously it's not going to go right, which it doesn't.
Right. It does not.
He doesn't go to the correct place. She's like, no, it's better over here. And he's like, nah. And he just like stands up and she pushes him off the bridge right as some woman witnesses it, which by the way, never really comes back to her. The fact that
it's mentioned that some woman thought she, quote unquote, thought she saw a girl that looked like her.
Yeah.
But I think they were just like, it's a kid.
Yeah.
She got hit by a car. Stuff happens.
9-year-old blonde kid from Norway. There's probably a lot of them. So anyway, yeah. So Ben takes his revenge by doing the mind control thing on Ida, and she thinks she's being chased by like giants or something. I couldn't.
Snakes, yeah, and giant, some type of giant shadow figure thing.
Right. And we should mention, we've not talked much about Ida's power, and Ida's power, I can't, it's a little loosey-goosey, It's more like she has to make a decision to use her power, whereas everybody else is just like, I have this power, Right. And I'll get to that in a moment. But anyway, Ida's being chased. She's afraid of snakes. So there's a snake chasing her, and there's these giants chasing her, and she backs onto this road, and this car like honks at her and brings her out of her trance, and she jumps just in time to like basically get hit in the feet, it looks like.
Yeah, she gets clipped by it.
Yeah.
You like see her leg get hit by the car.
So she's got a broken leg and a pretty nasty looking concussion. There's a big egg on her forehead. But they bring her home and she's in a cast, and I think Aisha's already dead, right? By this point.
Yeah, she is.
Ben's already killed her, yeah. Oh, and that's what has made, that's right. That's why Ida wanted to push Ben off the bridge, because he killed Aisha. And Anna, without Aisha, has started to become less verbal. But Ben tries to, this is kind of strange at the end. Ben tries to kill them. One at a time. Right. I don't know how exactly he's planning to do it. Although, like we said, he seems very powerful. And Anna goes to, at first Ida thinks their mother's going to kill them, and it's set up to look that way. But mom's like, I've got to go to the store. I forgot some vegetables for dinner, or whatever she says. It's in Norwegian. And so she leaves, and then she hears Anna leave. And so she chases Anna out, and Anna's at the edge of the pond, and Ben's at some other part in this park, and everybody's come back from vacation, but it's before school starts. So it's just full of kids and parents, and all of the older kids start watching the three of them, and all of the babies start crying. And it's this,
dogs are barking, children are staring.
Yeah. And we should mention at this point, Ben has controlled the elevator so that Ida can't use the elevator to get down, and she's on like the 6th floor or something like that with crutches. So she heals her own leg and breaks her own cast. And I guess you're supposed to get the impression that she has made the decision to basically take Aisha's spot. and concentrate her powers, and they stop Ben's heart.
Yeah. They hold hands and stop his heart.
Yeah. And then they go home, and Ida hugs her mother, and Anna, it ends with Anna, she's got this, it's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch, right? Where she draws on it. And before she met Aisha, she would just
Magnadoodle.
Yeah. She would just draw circles with it and like leave them there. And then she started drawing pictures when she was, let's say, working with Aisha. And she's gone back to just drawing lines across it. But then at the very end of the movie, she wipes it clean and she's about to start drawing again. And they cut to the credits and it's like, for Christ's sake, you couldn't even give me that. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like there's a kernel of a good idea here, but a lot of cheapness too.
I enjoyed this movie. I found it incredibly tense. I was tense, on the edge of my seat the whole time. Horrifying, tense, unsettling. I felt very like my skin was crawling when this was over. Both from like the evil kids, the graphic violence, the really unsettling score, the way that they kind of use the
Tibetan singing bowl score. Oh. I mean, I used to meditate. Fun fact, spoiler piece listeners, I used to be really into meditation. The Tibetan singing bowls, delightful sound to my ear until yesterday when I watched this movie.
It's so eerie. And then the apartment complex itself is its own kind of bizarre character. There's a lot of shots of the structure like upside down and the stairwell, and just in ways that you're like, the vastness of this is just terrifying.
Yeah, the place is really big. Like at first you don't realize the scale. And as the movie goes on, this is actually kind of a smart use of time and space. Mm-hmm. They reveal how big the apartment complex is over the course of the movie. Because at first you think it's just a couple of buildings, and then you're like, oh no, it's like a town, basically. It's that big. So you dug it overall. Like I said, I liked it in the sense that I thought it was tense. I also think that the performances are highly variable from the kids. I think that Anna's really good, given whoever played her, given what the enormous changes in her character. I think Aisha's fine. I think Ida is I think it's partly the way her character is written and the way she was directed to be so stony faced.
Yeah.
But so I don't want to blame that on the kid so much. It's like her first movie. She's 9 years old. She speaks Norwegian. What's she going to do? Sorry, that's a terrible joke. But I think Ben's performance is kind of shitty. I just think he wasn't very good. Although he did have to roll his eyes back in his head a lot. So
that's true. He did.
Maybe that had something to do with it.
Also, like you said, his character is probably the least well drawn. So I think that also is a strike against his character. That it's just, I don't know if it's maybe could have been better directed in terms of performance, or it could have been written, or some combination of the two. But yeah, he feels kind of stone-faced in a lot of places. But I don't know if that's also him being just like an evil sociopath type character.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, there are moments though where he shows like genuine, happiness, and before you realize that he's evil. I mean, maybe that was just, the direction. It's like, all right, you're evil. Look blank. I don't know.
Right. Yeah. Lots of uncomfortable shots of kids standing very far away from each other, but staring at each other across the distance.
Very intensely.
It's just standing like stones, staring at each other.
Yeah. Yeah. So, that's the Innocents. Do you have things to add? Looks good. I'll say it looks good.
Yeah, it does look good. It's a good looking movie.
And I don't want to be unfair to the kid who played Ida. I did like her performance. I just can't tell whether it was on purpose or not.
Yeah. The effects I think look good too in terms of the powers.
The effects look good?
Yeah.
The stick breaking in half looked amazing
when it exploded everywhere.
Yeah, when
or the branch.
Yeah, when Ida's holding out in front of her, and Ben, not totally evil yet, maybe because he thinks Ida's on his team, he's like, hold it farther away from your face. It's like, good thing he said that, because that thing would have fucking broken in her face. Yeah, that looked good. And then the practical effect of when she was in like the trance state or whatever, when Ida was in the trance state, and she had this, I don't know if it was a walking stick or what it was, but she reached down and it was a snake. And I was like, "Ee!" Well, that was just good old practical, let's put a snake there effects. It was good. But it's also convenient that she's afraid of snakes, because, fake snakes probably don't cost much for the property master. But
no, probably not.
It's not like they had like a Raiders of the Lost Ark room of snakes. So.
Asps, very dangerous. You go first.
I just saw that again a couple days ago. I don't know why, because I've seen that movie 400,000 times. Anyway, it sounds like you are a bigger fan of this than I was, but I'm not a fan. There's potential there. But maybe I've just had enough of evil kid movies. I don't know. Well, the whole thing kind of felt like Stand By Me, but with like evil magic, because
they didn't find a dead body in the woods to poke. Unfortunately,
they created dead bodies to poke.
Right.
So anyway, that's The Innocents. Anything else for you?
No, that's it.
Alrighty. Well, The Innocents is coming out today in theaters and on demand. And if you are a fan of the evil child subgenre of horror films, I think you'll probably like it.
You like an evil murderous child, and you can tolerate some animal death on screen, then this movie's for you.
Yeah. Poor cat. Poor Aisha. Jesus. Poor kid with the compound fracture, which is shown in excruciating detail, I might add.
Oh, yeah.
Quick question about that. Was that kid a part of the bully group, or did he just feel like doing that to see if he could do it?
I think he just felt like doing it to see if he could do it. I didn't get the sense there was just the one kid, it seemed like, who was really bullying him.
Right. Okay. Well, anyway, that, ladies and gentlemen, is this week's Spoiler Piece Theater. Thanks for joining us. Like I said, the Automat's playing here in Boston. You can check your local listings for it elsewhere. The Innocents is in theaters and on demand. I think we'd both say yay to both.
Yeah, for sure.
We want to thank our editor, Otto Clammer, for taking the heavy lifting out of our hands each week. Thank you, Otto.
Thanks, Otto.
You can find Spoiler Piece Theater anywhere you get podcasts. You can find us on our website, spoilerpiece.com. If you want to follow us on social media, we're Spoiler Piece Theater on Facebook, and we're at Spoiler Piece on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd. If you'd like to get in touch with us via the emails, we're spoilerpiece@gmail.com, or you can give us a call
at 862-21-PEACE.
Leave us a voicemail. Let us know what you thought. Am I being too hard on The Innocents? Maybe I am. I'm not sure. But I've said my piece. I don't need to say anymore. And if you like the show, please rate and review us by going to ratethispodcast.com/spoilerpiece, or you can rate us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. If you really, really like the show, please consider joining our Patreon. As I mentioned at the top of the episode, this week, Evan and I talk about Elaine May's 1976 film, Mikey and Nicky, starring John Cassavetes and Peter Falk. Good conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as they say, is that. My name is Dave Riedel. I write about movies and I talk about them too. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, and Letterboxd as Dave Sees Movies.
My name is Evan Crean. I'm co-chair of the Boston Online Film Critics Association and co-author of your 80s Movie Guide to Better Living. You can follow me on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd as Real Recon, and that's real as in film reel.
And we will see you next week.
Bye.